Sometimes you realize that man muss sich immer gut verteilen. All the love, stress, and there's no reason. Like, it depends how good. I know some people that do like jobs for a bigger company and they're just at meetings, maybe you're bored and they know it doesn't make any sense. Do you agree? In startup, maybe you're just more things.
Yeah, sometimes I wish
yeah? Like when there's like a small end, no one sees you do something real. Yeah, that's more like this is your time to go home.
I mean, they're all
That's true, especially internship.
the jump seat.
Yeah, that was good. The next day is really nice. Yeah, you really working. Oh shit. Okay, too shit. Barbecue? At some point I was living at the apartment. One of the apartments they had like it's like where the train station is, you go to the left, it's like kind of new model. It's like really big buildings. Apartments. You can also use the deck structure. It's like really big, so you really see around and you see the mountains. It looked really cool. But it was very far in the interesting. It was like on the S-Bahn, you know? Yeah, sure. You got to see it. And I guess everything with their cars. Yeah, we can make a robot here. You can see my head. You can see it from here. She cannot see it. Sometimes join these guys.
Also ich darf euch hier für, also ich bin der Alex, ich bin der Chef der Piratenpartei Oberbayern und darf euch hier herzlich begrüßen zu diesem kleinen Bitcoin-Event. Ja? Und ja, wir stellen die Räumlichkeiten zur Verfügung und es freut uns, dass so viele von euch da sind. Ja? Und jetzt übergebe ich mal das Wort an Michael.
Ja, danke Alex. Thanks, Alex. For this location that we can do our meetup here, and there's actually, I think, a little narrative line, because last time we cooperated with the Pirate Party, we had a core developer here, the Blue Matt, Corello, and he was giving a political talk. That's why it made sense to cooperate with the Pirate Party about Bitcoin and censorship resistance, and this is the value proposition of Bitcoin. But he said something like, okay, it's fine, but Bitcoin is still regulated on the on and off ramps, and these are the exchanges. And maybe someone in the worldwide Bitcoin community thought, okay, well, challenge accepted. We have to build a decentralized exchange, and so Manfred, I think, was one of them. And so he will present his project. He's been working on it for 3 years already, and so he will give an introduction and walk you through it and why this is an important project. Manfred.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming, and thanks a lot for the Piratenpartei for hosting the event. I'm actually a little bit connected with Piratenpartei. I was a member in Austrian Piratenpartei. Unfortunately, I never got the time to really become active, but I see a lot of touching points with the Piratenpartei, and especially like this liquid democracy model, which I will come later to this in the part of the DAO, because that's for me a very important tool, how people can cooperate and can work together. And I think there is quite a lot of common, in common between what Bitcoin can enable and what a political party like Piratenpartei is doing. Yeah, I would like to start. Give a quick overview about the presentation. I will start with Bisq as the exchange, and will explain how it works. And if you have any question, I will make, after the exchange part, after the first part, I will make a break for whatever, 10 minutes or so, question and answers. And then in the second part, I will talk about this DAO model, also decentralized autonomous organization. And I will explain what's about and how we are applying it and how it works in Bisq. And of course, at the end, we have another time for discussions and questions. I would like, before I start, I would like to ask you, how many does not know about Bitcoin, or is basically very new to Bitcoin? Not more? Don't be shy. Everybody has to start someday. And how many people know about Bisq, or have tried out Bisq already? Okay, you? Not too many. And how many people know about this concept of DAO, also decentralized autonomous organizations? Quite a few, okay, very good. So I will try to not lose the people who are not so well informed yet, so I hope it's interesting for you as well. And also for those who know more, that it doesn't get too boring, so it was a little bit difficult to get the right balance, but stop me when I'm getting too much in one direction. I would like to start about the motivation. I mean, why Bitcoin, why a decentralized exchange, and later in the second part, why a DAO, why a decentralized autonomous organization. I mean, there are some strong motivations behind them. I would like to share this, and that might be, especially for the newcomers, also something which is easier to grab like later than more technical stuff. I discovered Bitcoin in, I think, 2011, more or less, and I had the luck that I read a very interesting blog post. Unfortunately, I don't remember which it was, but it gave me a very clear picture about Bitcoin, because most people who heard the first time about Bitcoin got somehow, they needed a while until they really understand what it's about. And for me, it was from the beginning a huge political project. I thought, wow, that's the biggest, the most relevant project since the internet, because it does this, what the internet did for information, that it makes information exchange and transfer permissionless and open to everybody. Today everybody can be their own newspaper, their own TV station, their own radio station. You can do whatever you want, and if you want to do something what's not possible in the internet, and you're a developer, you can just develop yourself your tool what's missing. So this permissionlessness, that you don't have to ask the government or whoever, or a big company, that allows you to run a blog or to develop the software to distribute the information what you like to distribute. That's a key feature of the internet, and that was one of the reasons why the internet has become so successful and so widely deployed. And I think the same is true for Bitcoin. It just does what the internet did for information, Bitcoin does with value. And with value, we only know money as value. Like before the internet, information was radio, TV, newspaper, and telephone. But that was it basically for most people. And yeah, you could print on paper sheets and go on the street and distribute the paper sheets when you do political activism or whatever, but it was very limited. And today we have it with money. We know the national money like euro or dollar. We have a little bit different money like shares from public companies and a few other forms, but it's very limited basically. It's very narrow. And it's very controlled by governments, by big companies, and by banks mainly. But different to the internet, I mean, money is much more powerful and much more relevant in the world, like information exchange. Of course, information exchange is also super important, but money is even more important and more relevant. So my impression was first, wow, that's the biggest it does the same like the internet has done with information, it does with money, and that will have the effect that all the governments and banks and all these institutions where money is a very central element in their structure, in their politics, they're controlling the money, they're taking a lot of money, of course, and yeah, when this control, when money becomes fluid and will become a part of everybody who want to develop something with money, that will change quite a lot the way how governments works, how banks works, and probably it will go on. Like the internet has not stopped that, or we still have newspapers, we still have TV stations and radio, but they are different like 20 or 30 years ago. And I think something similar might happen with Bitcoin. At least it has the potential. We are still in the early years. And it depends basically on the people, what they are doing and what they are making out of this technology and out, from this potential. But I think we are on a good path. So that was a little bit an excuse why I was motivated to do something in Bitcoin. And yeah, when I get a little bit deeper into Bitcoin, I found, yeah, it's really a contradiction that Bitcoin is really a decentralized money and transfer system, so you can send money, you can store money in a technical system which is completely distributed, decentralized. But to buy Bitcoin, when you are new and you want to buy your first Bitcoin, or when you want to sell it again, then you have to go to an exchange, which is basically a company, or like they're operating basically like a bank. You are putting in your fiat money, your euro, and then you can buy your Bitcoin, and you have to trust them that they're not running away with your fiat or get hacked and then everything is lost. And yeah, they're basically acting like the model of what we know from banks with foreign currency exchange or whatever. And of course the government has their regulation, their power on those by all the laws in the regulatory area. And for me it was a big missing link that we don't have an exchange model which follows the principles and the philosophy of Bitcoin, that it's really decentralized, that there's not a company, there is that it's outside of the legal reach of the governments and where they can apply their financial surveillance, and yeah, and I was wondering, yeah, why not try to build something like this? There was quite a lot of ideas out in the space, but nobody has really built it. And so it started, I made a concept, discussed it with people, and then starting developing it, and since 1.5 years, the project is live. It's still small, and we are still bootstrapping in a way, and it's a lot of work, and I'm running it as an open source project, not as a company, so anybody can contribute and can join the project. And about this I will talk in the second part, about the decentralized autonomous organization. Yeah. That's a little bit an introduction, quite long. So when you want to build a decentralized exchange, you have of course big problems about security, because when you have a normal exchange, you are looking for a trusted third party, somebody where, yeah, I want to make a deal with you and we know this guy, and so I give him the euro and then he makes the exchange and give you the Bitcoin. And so it works like a notary. Yeah, we have this everywhere in our usual legal structure. We have third parties whom we trust, and those are usually protected by law. So yeah, the trust is protected by laws. So when a notary is cheating or so, he gets a huge fine. Usually he does not do this, at least in Central Europe. And but yeah, in Bitcoin it's different. In Bitcoin we don't want to have these third parties where we need the trust. We want to have a system where we don't require the necessity of a trusted third party, because those trusted third parties are very expensive. There is security risk, because when they are cheating or when they get hacked, then a lot is destroyed. And we have seen it in the Bitcoin space. There have been hacked a lot of exchanges. The most famous was Mt. Gox, where I think 700 million or so got stolen, and it happened all the time because, of course, it's a huge honeypot for hackers to get this money. So I will give a quick overview what what is Bisq? I mean, it's a desktop application, it's not a web page, because you cannot implement on a web page a really decentralized peer-to-peer system. Web pages, the browsers are built on the server-client architecture and not on application architecture. And we are using features which simply would not work in the browser alone. So it's a desktop application, you can download it and just double-click it, install it, that's it. You don't need any extra requirements. It's available for all major operating systems like Linux and Windows and Mac OS. We are utilizing a peer-to-peer network over Tor. That's a custom peer-to-peer network I developed myself. And we are using Tor hidden services as the transport layer for the messages. That has, on the technical side, the big advantage that when you create a peer-to-peer system, the hardest part is technically this net traversal problem, so that you are reachable from other nodes, like a server, basically, that somebody else can connect to you. That's usually very difficult, and Tor has solved this in a very, very high, very robust. And of course, then you get all the privacy benefits and the security benefits of Tor as well. And these hidden services are probably not so well known, but you can think of it as a form of, everybody knows when you connect to your banking web page or any important page, they're using this HTTPS, or this TLS system. So that's an encryption layer as well. So that's cryptographic security, that nobody can hack in between your connection, can read whatever the data which you exchanging with your banking web page or so, whatever. And Tor is, uses a different model for the security, which is much more decentralized and much stronger and better. And that's called Tor hidden services. And we are using that. So we are not exiting the Tor network with the exit nodes to the plain network. We are staying in. All the Bitcoin Bisq nodes are Tor hidden services and connected with each other. And conceptually it's very important that we, as a Bisq is not a company, it's not really an entity, there's nobody who is holding the funds. So when you are putting your Bitcoin in your application, it never arrives at Bisq or at me or whatever, it's always in your control, on your local application, and only in the moment when you are trading, the funds move to a multi-sig deposit, I will explain this later, which is basically, you can imagine it's in the Bitcoin network. So the Bitcoin network is like the trusted third party in a way, but there's no entity, no person who is in charge and who can get hacked and could run away with your money. So we are never holding the funds, and also we are never holding the user data. So when people are trading over Bisq, then they are connected to each other and nobody else knows about this trade. I don't know when you are doing a trade on Bisq. It's a private interaction between you, and I'm only providing the software. And for this, there's no registration required. Usually in a centralized exchange, you need to send you a copy of your passport, a lot of data. When they get hacked, and that happens unfortunately very often, those data end up in the hands of criminals, and they're using it for identity theft, and you get much more troubles in future with such stuff. And I think that's a very bad model, because I don't want to trust any company that they are really securing my data and take care that it doesn't get hacked. And additionally, of course, it's a huge privacy problem, because they know exactly the connection from your Bitcoins. When you are buying Bitcoin, they know the address where you send out your Bitcoin and your name, so they can track you what you're doing with Bitcoin. And in Bitcoin, all the connections are connected, so it's, from the privacy point of view, it's pretty bad. Everything is public, and when you are not taking care that you are keeping your addresses private, then everybody can see what you're doing with your money, and that's not only for private persons very bad, that's also for companies very bad. And they are actually criticizing this, or banks as well. They don't like Bitcoin because of lack of privacy. So it's not only the criminals on Silk Road who want privacy, it's the banks, and everybody wants privacy, because without privacy, it's a human right. And the companies, they want to protect their secrets against their competitors. When their competitors can see how they are using the money, from whom they are buying their resources or whatever. They're exposing a lot of information and they don't want to use. Yeah, software is open source. We're using HGPL license, which are, let's not go into the details of this, but it's completely open source. And as I said already, we are not a company, we are not a startup. We are using this DAO model, this model of the decentralized autonomous organization, which I covered in the second part. Yeah, when you build a system where you don't have a trusted third party, it's a challenge how, what's the alternative, the security model? In the normal exchange, the security model is you trust this company, that they are really, that they have to apply to regulatory laws and so, and they cannot run away easily with the money, or when they get hacked, maybe they have insurance or whatever. But that's the common security model for them. When you don't use this model, you have to invent a new security model. And in Bisq, the security model contains those three elements. The first is a 2 of 3 multisig. I will explain a little bit about what is a multisig transaction. In Bitcoin, or for the non-technical persons, you can imagine that it's something like a lockbox where you can put in the money. Anybody can, it has an entrance where you can put in the money, but to get out the money you need a key, a special key. And you can define how many people have a key and how many keys you need to open it. So you can create a lockbox where you say, okay, there are 3 people who have access, but you need minimum 2 keys to open the lockbox. When one guy of the 3 want to open the lockbox, he cannot open it. But 2 of them, of the group of the 3, can open the lockbox and can take out the money again. So putting in the money, you don't need any requirement. Anybody can send the money to the lockbox. But getting out the money, you need at least 2 keys of 3 available keys when you have a 2 of 3 multisig. You can construct in Bitcoin any kind of multisig. You can construct a 4 of 5 multisig, then you need minimum 4 keys of 5 total keys available. And that's a very strong and very powerful tool in Bitcoin. It's basically a smart contract where the protocol, the way how Bitcoin works, has some special rules, and when they are really, when they have fulfilled the rules, then you can take out the money. And we are using this 2 of 3 multisig. And another important feature is the security deposit. So when you are trading, you need to put in extra money as a security deposit, which guarantees that you are following the trade protocol. Because in the trade protocol, we go through the trade protocol in the next slide. There are some steps what we cannot solve by software alone, because the banks, unfortunately, have not discovered that they could provide APIs, and then we could do it by software, but as the banks have slept the last 20 years and don't apply modern IT, we cannot do this. And for that we need the human work, that you are going to your banking webpage and sending the money, and the other looking at this banking webpage and confirms that he has received the money. Those humans, those human labor, we need to motivate the users that they're really doing it and that they're not lazy and go on holiday and forget about it, and the other peers then suffering damage basically. And to create an incentive, a negative incentive, that they are following this protocol and doing their human work, we are adding the security deposit. So when you are buying a Bitcoin and then you have to send the euro to the other peer, and when you are not doing this, then you will lose the security deposit, and with that you have the incentive to do it properly, otherwise you have a damage. And then there is a decentralized arbitration system. It can be that there are software bugs, or it can be that one user is sending the money and the other say I never received it, and then somebody has to find out what was going wrong. And that's again, that's a thing what you cannot leave to computers. It cannot be automated, especially when there are bugs, because bugs are created by software, and then you need software which are fixing the bugs. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. And especially with, again, with the banks, when you have to find out who was lying in the process, You need to get proof from the banks and so on. So that's a process what you cannot do by software alone. You need an arbitrator. That's a person who is in the role of a judge in a way, but in reality it's 99% customer care work. Mostly it's some problems or whatever, and then this person, which is me at the moment, is helping the people for resolving the problems and getting out the money like it should be. And unfortunately we are still not there that it's fully decentralized, as it's on our roadmap for the next half year. We want to be there that anybody can become such an arbitrator and it's fully decentralized, but there are some security issues, and that for this reason at the moment it's limited to myself and to other trusted persons where I know they're completely trustful. But in a few months or half a year, we're getting to the stage that anybody can become such an arbitrator and work for the project, and they can earn money with this and be in the role of a kind of like a judge or customer care agent. Here we see the trade process. We go a little bit more in the details that you can read more. Just want to give the overall picture. So we have, a trade where Alice wants to buy Bitcoin and Bob wants to sell Bitcoin. And at the end, Alice has to send over the fiat money, the US dollar or the euro, and at the end, Alice gets the Bitcoin and Bob gets the fiat. So in the first step, Alice, in this case, Alice creates an offer. It could be also that she's in the role that she's taken an existing offer, but let's stick with this role that she's creating an offer. She's putting up an offer in the software. Yeah, she wants to buy 1 Bitcoin with whatever price. Let's say at the moment I think it's 3,500 euros. So she makes an offer. I want to buy 1 Bitcoin with 3,500 euros. And this offer gets distributed in the peer-to-peer network, and every node, every desktop application receives those offers and displays it in an offer book. So you just a list of all the offers, and when you think that's a good price, you can take it. And Bob, on the other side, he's in the role that he wants to sell his Bitcoin, and he sees Alice's offer and takes the offer from Alice. At the moment when he's taking the offer, the software of both peers is creating a deposit transaction. This is this 2 or 3 multisig transaction. And the 1 Bitcoin what Bob is selling goes into this multisig, in this lockbox, and as well a security deposit of both traders. So we have here in the case 0.01 Bitcoin, and it's important that both traders, also Alice, even if she wants to buy Bitcoin, she has to put in the security deposit. It will become clear a little bit later. But just accept it that Bob has to pay in 1 Bitcoin plus his security deposit of 0.01 Bitcoin, and Alice has to put in 0.1 Bitcoin. And all goes into this lockbox, in this multisig, and as soon both have sent the money there, it's locked in and nobody can take out the money alone. So when this transaction has been published to the Bitcoin network, Alice cannot take out her money, Bob cannot take out her money, only together they can take out the money because both have the keys for the unlocking again. And as we said before, you need minimum 2 keys. Out of 3 keys, they can unlock the money at the end. And the 3rd key is the arbitrator. And that's only used when something goes wrong. In the usual case, the arbitrator is not part of all this.
So Alice cannot buy her very, very first Bitcoin there, right?
Sorry?
Alice cannot buy her very, very first Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's a small problem that people who are completely new, who don't have Bitcoin at all, they cannot use it, but we are offering a loan basically. So when somebody wants the small amount, I give a loan to them and then they send me back. And there are some ideas how to solve this in the future, but without the security deposit, I will explain at the end, it would not be really safe. Yeah, as soon Alice has published, or the traders have published this multisig deposit, they have to wait for one confirmation in the blockchain. So this transaction is really in the blockchain and cannot be double spent or cannot be changed anymore. And as soon as at least one confirmation is there, Alice has to go to her online banking webpage and send the fiat money to Bob. And that's out of system. She only gets the required data to send the money, like the bank account, the IBAN number, and the name, depending on the payment method. So we are supporting many different payment methods, and with altcoins, as you also can trade Bitcoin to another cryptocurrency like Monero or like Ethereum. And when in the case of altcoin, you only get the altcoin address of the other peer and send then the altcoin to the other peer. But let's stick with the fiat model. So she goes to her banking webpage, send 3,500 euro to the IBAN, to the bank account number of Bob. And as soon as she has done this, she goes back to Bisq and click a button. I've started the payment, and the application sends a message to Bob that Alice has started the payment. Then Bob has to check his banking webpage if he has received the money. In some payment methods, it's instant. Unfortunately, with SAFE, it can take up to 4 days or whatever. I don't know what the banks are doing in 4 days to send money, but that's the state of the banking system. And as soon as he has checked his banking account and has seen that he has received 3,500 euro from Alice, he goes to the Bisq application and clicks again a button. I have confirmed that he has received the money. And with this button click, the application is creating the payout transaction, which is taking the money from the multisig, from this lockbox, and send out a part to Alice and a part to Bob. And here the one Bitcoin which Bob has put into the multisig is now moving to Alice, on Alice's side, and the security deposit of both goes back to both traders. So everybody gets back the security deposit, there is no loss on this. The only money which is not paid back is the trading fee, because they have to pay a small trading fee as well, and the transaction fee, because in Bitcoin you need to pay a transaction fee as well for getting into the blockchain. And the Bitcoin has moved from Bob's side to Alice's side. And when we go back, when we imagine the security deposit would not be there, and Alice would not pay in anything, and only Bob would pay in the one Bitcoin, then Alice, then the transaction has been published, but Alice has nothing to lose. When Alice is lazy and forgot about the trade, or she's just waiting if the price is moving for her direction and she make a better deal, and otherwise canceling basically the trade, she has no loss, and Bob has to wait. His Bitcoin gets locked because there is a trade period. So depending on the payment method, for SAFE it's 6 days, can take until he has the possibility to open a dispute with the arbitrator. So for 6 days, his money would be locked, and Alice can play around and don't do anything, and at the end never pay. And she never gets punished because she's just a random peer in the internet. We don't have any access, and we are outside of the legal system, so we cannot do anything. But with the security deposit, we have a way to punish her when she's not following the trade protocol, and that ensures that most people are following the trade protocol, and if not, the money what she loses goes into the other peers. So the damage what Bob would have in such a case, that he has locked up 1 week or a few days his Bitcoin, at the end he gets then the 0.01 Bitcoin from Alice, which is something like 40 or 35 euro at the moment. So it's not so bad interest rate, 1% for 1 week. So, and with the security deposit, we are managing that the human actors are acting reliable, so that we can count on that what they have to do, because we cannot automate these parts, that they are doing it correctly.
But one question, what happens if Bob says, I haven't received money?
That would be then the arbitration case. That can happen, usually it happens at the end of the trade period. So when the trade period has exceeded, like in SEPA, 6 days, in the other it's usually 1 day when it's an instant payment method, like in England most other payment methods have a very short period. And when this time is exceeded, so when you have, when you are in Bob's role and you are waiting for the 3,500 euro, and after 6 days you have not received anything, then you get the button displayed, open dispute, and you click the button, the arbitrator gets the message and all the required information about the trade, and the arbitrator gets in contact.
But what arbitrator can do there? Because he has
Yeah.
no control of that.
Yeah, I explain it in a minute.
If Bob lies to get the money, if he got the money from others, and then says, I didn't get the money, you can't check up if you got the money, and and then he says, I didn't get the money?
Yeah, I will explain in a minute how we can prove this. The arbitrator gets the information about and contacts both peers. We're using a third-party tool which is called TLS Notary or PageSteiner, which is a pretty genius hack of the TLS protocol, which I cannot explain in detail because it's too complicated for me, but it works. It's all open source, and they created a plugin for Firefox and Chrome. So I request them from both traders that they are making a page-signed document from their banking webpage where they see their claim. Also when you are in Alice role and you say I have sent the money, and you are in Bob role and say I have not received the money, I ask both, okay, go to your banking webpage, to the history where you see this transaction, you can filter it by date and whatever, don't see anything else, and then make a page-signed document with this, and this is cryptographically safe. That's the same like when you, and that's alternatively also possible, you can also go to your bank and ask your bank for a digital signed statement about this transaction. Most banks probably will not do it, and it takes probably half a year until you get this. So, but it's conceptually it's the same security. It uses basically it's too complicated to explain, but it's cryptographically tamper-proof. So you could not hack this. That you get that you are changing the web page what you get from the bank and then change the numbers or whatever. That would not work.
No, but in that case, Alice obviously can provide some statement or whatever you said, but Bob don't want to provide anything because he's the one getting the money.
But his Bitcoin is already locked.
Yeah,
Bitcoin is gone already.
The Bitcoin is already gone?
It's already
Bitcoin is locked up. He cannot access his Bitcoin. That's in the multisig. So he cannot.
That's true.
And I request the same from Bob that he has not received the money to filter by date or whatever in this time period. And when when they cannot lie about this. I mean, one can say, okay, I don't do this because I don't trust the software or it doesn't work for me. But then the other who has proven his part is the winner, because when both would not want to do this, or it doesn't work with all banking web pages, then we go to the next step, and that's the classical dispute resolution, like it would be also in other models or so. I try to get in touch with them by Skype call, talk with the people. Usually the scammers don't want to reveal too much from their identity, and request ID verification or whatever. Try to get further to the step, but actually it was never required. From all the cases, there was no single dispute where one was saying I sent it and the other I didn't receive it. The usual stuff is just problems with software, usability problems, banking problems, but there was basically no real dispute. But when it would be just that we have this powerful tool that they cannot fake this, and when one of the traders, when one is the scammer and want to cheat the other and the other is accepting it, the cheater has already lost, because when he doesn't provide this and the other is providing this page-stamp document, he's the winner. And
what are the things you check in the signed page? You know,
sorry,
you have the signed statement of the.
It's technically complicated to explain.
But what do you check? Like he sent it to the right person, I guess, and.
Now, so this system is hooking into the TLS stream, but they're hooking into the traffic in a way that they cannot see anything because everything is encrypted, but they see the hash, and they can, they deliver basically a document then, or the peer is delivering a document from his banking web page, and when he would change anything, it would yeah, they cannot tamper the document from the server because any change would change the hash and then it would break the system.
It takes it without even seeing the web page, or like sort of.
No, you have.
You don't
when you're the user, you have to browse to your web page,
yeah.
what you want to prove, and basically this web page, you can think of it like a cryptographic screenshot.
Yeah.
You make basically it's just the data, of course, and also there's no CSS, so it's only the text. But it's enough to verify the content. And you're making basically a screenshot of this web page, but a normal screenshot you can Photoshop, of course, so it's not safe.
Yeah, you get HTML, it's the signed web page.
Yeah, it's the HTML content, and with this system, we are getting this in a cryptographic, secure way that we can be sure that it was not tampered, that
you don't actually see it
the banking server.
And the signature that you are checking is the signature of what?
It's not the signature. I cannot explain the detail because I also didn't understand it in all the details. It's really complicated. But it's a hack of the TLS system, of the TLS protocol, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Suggest that you basically check the certificate of the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah, every web page you get is signed by this bank.
By the bank.
Yeah. Also, this third part is using a part of the pre-hash for in the protocol. It's really complicated, but you can look it up. It's all open source, and when you're a programmer, you know about network stuff, you can understand it. But it's not so easy to understand. Yeah, I cannot explain the details because I also don't know it. But I know these persons, and it's used in several projects already. And it's pretty cool because, yeah, I mean, again, when the banks would apply normal IT, would not be any issue because they could have a bubble where you just get a digital signed statement from whatever you want. They have the public key on the banking web page and that's it. Would be really trivial, but no bank is doing this for whatever reason.
So without online banking, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, so we are supporting also something like. We're not supporting face-to-face trade like over Bitcoin, mainly because we cannot help anything. I mean, the arbitrator cannot do anything. But there are a few methods like cash deposit and in US postal money order, but there you also get a receipt. But at least with cash deposit you don't have the banking web page and it's a little bit less secure, but we didn't have any issues so far. And when we would get issue, we kick out this payment method and don't support it anymore.
What happens to speculate? Like it takes like 1 week to receive the money from this safe thing, just to save this one, the 001 Bitcoin. Maybe I speculate, I wait 1 week. If it turns like 002, I take it. If not, I just pay the 001 and I'm going like this.
Yeah, that was a problem in the earlier version, but we fixed it in the recent version, which was deployed a few months ago. Earlier it was a fixed deposit, and when there was a huge volatility in Bitcoin or in altcoins, and when you basically would lose more money when you go on with the trade because the price has changed against your intentions, and the security deposit was less, then it was economically rational for you to cancel basically the trade and not go on, and that happens sometimes. But now we have, when you're creating an offer, you can define the security deposit for the Bitcoin buyer, because the Bitcoin buyer is the main problem. Because for Bob, he also could, at the end of the trade, he could not click the button for I have received the money. But it doesn't help him really, it's just annoying, but not more. But for Alice, when the price has moved and she's waiting before sending the money a long time, she could decide, it's more opportunistic for her to not do the deal. So here we have the main problem. And for the Bitcoin buyer, when you make an offer and when you're the seller, you can define, I want to have 0.2 Bitcoin, then it's quite a lot of money. Then it's 900 euros or 700 euros at the moment. And it's between a minimum and a maximum range, and we use a default range, what's recommended. At the moment it's 0.03 Bitcoin, which is 105 euros, so it's quite a lot of money. And I mean, it still can be, but it's at the end, it's a kind of like an insurance also, it's an option trade, where where the buyer gets the insurance when the price moves too far away from the initial point when he takes the offer. He is covered by his maximum loss. He cannot lose more, like what's in the security deposit, €100. When the price is moving like crazy, he can cancel it and lose then the security deposit to the other peer. The other peer is not winning maybe the maximum when the trade has been executed, but he gets at least €100. And it's a form of option trading, basically, where you have, as the buyer, you have the security that your maximum loss from volatility is capped by the security deposit. So you can see it as a positive feature. It depends how you want to see it, but yeah, it's the way how. And we leave it basically to the users when there is high volatility or when you don't want to risk anything. You can use a very high security deposit, but then of course it might be less likely that somebody takes the offer because you need to lock up that money.
This thing makes it not that mainstream. This makes the idea a bit harder to realize.
Yeah. I mean, the whole project, we are not competing with Coinbase or with these mainstream exchanges where you register and lose all your data and you trust them. Because, I mean, you cannot compete on, you cannot trade so fast, for instance. You cannot make every few seconds a new trade and do this speculative stuff. It's mainly for the people who care about privacy, who care about decentralization, who care about security. And many people get burned with Mt. Gox. It was, I mean, people forget very quickly, but I mean, yeah, it was a huge damage and it was not the only one.
One question. I think if you don't involve this fiat money here, then everything will be quick, right? Because now you have included the fiat money, transacting the fiat money, the normal euros currency. Yeah. But if you just only do the exchange between Bitcoin to Ethereum or so on, then it will be quick. Then it will be fast.
Then it will be fast. I mean, fast. Yeah, exactly. That's actually planned at the moment. We are working on APIs where you can, because with altcoins, luckily all the data is in their blockchain. So the one who is sending, it can be done by a computer who look up the blockchain in Ethereum and see, okay, the transaction is sent now in the blockchain, and do the button click instead of the user. And the same when it's in the blockchain, the software can activate the payout, and that's. It's not implemented yet, it's planned.
Because 99% of the delay is in transferring this fiat money.
Yeah. So, and for us, the fiat is the most important part, because there, I mean, for altcoin, there are still a few exchanges where you can trade without registration and so on. I mean, it will change. The regulatory regime will apply all the rules on the altcoin exchange as well. But at the moment, there are still a little bit. And for me also the most important is for those people who want to get into the Bitcoin system that they have an on-ramp where they can protect their privacy and where it's not automatically connected their first Bitcoins with their identity, and then it's very easy to track them what they're doing with the Bitcoin. And I think that's it, not only for your personal privacy a problem, that's a problem for Bitcoin itself, because that destroys the fungibility. Fungibility is the property of every money, but every money has this, otherwise it's not true, it will not survive as money. It's that when you are receiving a dollar note, this dollar note has the same value like any other dollar note. So it's not like from this shop the dollar note has less value because there are some dodgy people buying in this shop or whatever, and maybe one of the dollar note have been included in a crime or whatever. I mean, in fact, nearly every dollar note, 90%, more than 90%, have traces of cocaine on it. So when you would apply that, what they want, some people want to apply on Bitcoin, they have to take out all the dollar notes because they're all dirty at the end. But when you would have a money where the receiver of the money have the obligation to check all the history, to be really sure that nobody has done any crime with this money, you would simply not accept the money because the work would be so high that you would say, then use something else, make another barter trade or whatever. Money would not work that way because it needs a very low friction, and with this high friction that you need to check all the history, you would not work. So those attacks on the privacy are actually attacks on Bitcoin as money, as a sound money, and as a strong money, because a Bitcoin system where you don't have privacy will not have value, something like that.
So I have a question. Does the buyer and the seller have, when they make an offer,
does the buyer can say, you know, how much he can pay for like a deposit, and the seller as well can define how much he will pay for a deposit, or how is it really evaluated?
Now, the security deposit for the seller, for the buyer is defined in the offer, and then the one who creates the offer can define it. And then anybody who takes this offer has to agree with this, otherwise you cannot take the offer. So when you're taking the offer, you're accepting all the terms of the offer. And the security deposit for the seller is still fixed because, as said before, he has not much incentive to cheat. It's just laziness or whatever, but that's not the real problem. The real problem was for the buyer side. And it's up to the people, it's up to the users when they want more security. Yeah, they have maybe a little bit less chance that their offer get taken, but they have a stronger security. And yeah.
Is there a reputation system integrated?
No, but we are, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of a reputation system, but it's a peer-to-peer reputation system. I'll talk a little bit more about this. I mean, it's much requested, but unfortunately, there are a few issues with reputation. One is that reputation is never safe, so it's never really security, because you can, in all the reputation system, you can create sock puppets or sybils. So you can say, I make 20 accounts and give a lot of positive feedback to one account, and then with this one account, which has then a very positive feedback, you are scamming. And it's very difficult to counteract against this. And the other problem is there's the long confidence. So you are, for 1 year, you're a perfect user, you don't scam whatever. And then everybody trusts you a lot, and then you're scamming. That's usually done by politicians. They have 20 years leads, and then they run away with the money. And you cannot do anything against this, because you never know when people change their strategy. So it's not good for security, but it's still good for additional information, and people like it a lot. And we have it, and it's very difficult to implement any reputation system in a really decentralized and privacy protecting structure, because yeah, we don't know about the trades. So it's between those two, and nobody else should know about it. So the only who can give reputation, yeah, you can give him a reputation after the trade, and you can give him a reputation after the trade, but you cannot really store it you cannot collect it centralized, because then the collector would become the honeypot who gets all the data and so on. And one second. And we have this reputation that, yeah, you see when you trade with other peers, because identity in Bisq is your onion address, your core onion address. It's a little bit like an IP address, but with IP address you have basically nearly zero privacy, and with Tor onion address it's technically like a Bitcoin address. It's, yeah, you have a lot of privacy. Basically you're invisible for spies. And when you're connected, you know your identity anyway, because the onion address is not changing. So on top of this identity of the onion address, we can build up a kind of like reputation. So when you have traded together 5 times, both see, okay, the number 5, so you have a little bit you can think that when you have traded 5 times, the 6th time will be also safe. But it's not a strong security, because the long con can always work. He can trade 20 times with you, and then he cheats you.
He never would do
Yeah. So you were first. Yeah, you were first.
Okay. You said anyone could become the arbitrator in long range, and there comes a security risk with the arbitrator, I think, as well, because if Bob and the arbitrator work together and they want to get the money from Alice,
exactly,
it would be easy because of this too.
That's the reason why at the moment it's not open, because it would be too insecure. I mean, people have to trust me, or those people who I give the key for the arbitrator. And I mean, the root for this trust is, I'm not building this project for 3.5 years without earning money, basically, to destroy it by cheating one for Bitcoin or whatever. I mean, we have a trade limit. It's actually half a Bitcoin for a peer trade with euro. So what I can steal in one trade at least is half a Bitcoin, and I will destroy my project. So that would be very stupid. Yeah. But of course, it's not completely trustless at the moment and not decentralized, but yeah, it's planned to go there. And in the DAO, we had ideas before we had the DAO model. We had also ideas how to solve this, but they were never perfect ideas. And now with the DAO model, we have a solution how to make it really safe. And I will explain this later in the second part with the DAO. But as soon we have implemented everything, hopefully in half a year or in a few months, then basically anybody can become an arbitrator, but they have to lock up money. They have to make a very high security deposit. And when you become an arbitrator and you would collude with another trader and steal money, then you would lose your security deposit. But I explain this in the second part.
Do you see any risks of regulation being opposed to you? For example, in the USA, you need like know your customer, AML rules. So they could, for example, say, hey, you're like an exchange, we don't care what's the technology. They know who you are, they know the website, they could shut you down or something. What do you think?
We have checked this out with lawyers, of course, and luckily, even the regulation authorities follow or need to follow the laws, and the laws for exchanges are about custodial exchanges, so that the company is holding the money of the user, and that's why they're regulated. There are a few other stuff as well, like for instance automatic order matching. When you are doing it at a Kraken or at a normal exchange, they are doing the order matching for you. So when you make an offer and then they are matching with a counter offer and then you get it executed. But you don't have the guarantee that they are not taking the best offers for themselves and doing front running basically and manipulating stuff, and they're doing it for sure because especially when exchanges are not taking fees like the Chinese exchanges in the past, how they're earning money. And that, I mean, all this stuff has happened in the early 20th century with stock exchanges and so on, and because of the fraud, the regulation came, because this law, okay, we want to have these features that people can trade stocks and so, but we don't want to have all the fraud and the crime. And for protecting the users against these fraudulent companies, they added regulation, and then there was a lot of oversight to avoid this front running, for instance. And all this stuff doesn't exist in Bisq. So when we are not holding the fiat money or the Bitcoin, we are not custodial exchange. So all these laws which are built for custodial exchanges don't apply to us. And the same like front running or other stuff, so we are out of the regulatory regime because we are not the exchange. We are only providing the software that people can exchange directly with each other. And that's really a peer-to-peer system. It's not that, the money never moves around over us. And
how do you earn money then? How does Bisq earn money? Where is the income to Bisq?
That I explained in the DAO model. That's a DAO model basically. And I mean, there are trading fees. You have to pay a trading fee. That goes at the moment to the arbitrator, but in the DAO model explain the bigger picture.
But what if money is being laundered through that service? For example, like the Mt. Gox Bitcoin, they go through that. When you assuming you have $500,000 of black money and you want to launder this. So you're setting up whatever 100 or 200 or 500 trades on Bisq over your bank account and trade with different people. What will happen? Your bank will alert you're doing too much trades. I think in Europe it's usually €10,000 a month, which is accepted. When you trade 50,000 a month, you get already troubles with your bank. So you cannot do money laundering because the bank is included. The bank is a part in the transaction, and the bank is doing all this monitoring. And this. No, but what if the bitcoins are dirty?
Bitcoins are not dirty; they are very clean. I mean, when people introduce this model of a dirty Bitcoin, then it's not Bitcoin, then it's a government coin, and it will not have a future.
No, you like the Mt. Gox hack or something.
Yeah, but you have to live with it. I mean, when you want to apply this policy on Bitcoin, you destroy it. Because, I mean, it's the same like, you could say, it would be perfect when we can remove them from the air and only the good people can breathe the air or electricity, and all the bad guys, they don't get the electricity or whatever. It would make the system so expensive and so complicated like it is with the banking system. That's why it's so expensive and complicated, because they're applying all kinds of politics on the base layer,
all the stuff has to be done on a higher level.
But that makes you vulnerable because BTCE was also
Yeah,
shut
sure.
down because of that by the US government.
Yeah, but yeah, Bisq is not a company, it's not a centralized exchange, and as said, you cannot launder. I mean, you can launder in every supermarket, $100 by whatever. I mean, it's over €100 when you're exchanging it. It's all the time. I mean, to apply it on small amounts, yeah, it gets crazy. And on big amounts, it cannot work because your bank is in between, and also the trade amounts are limited with half a Bitcoin. That's not a lot of money. So, and yeah, I mean, money laundering with €2,000 is not relevant. With €100,000 it's relevant, but you cannot do it really over Bisq because you would need maybe 1 year or 2 years until you're transferring so much money over Bisq. And I mean, people can do it, like professional traders, but then they have a professional business account at the bank, and the bank accepts that they have, yeah, they say to the bank, so I'm a trader and I have whatever, €100,000 a month on traffic, on revenue, and yeah, then it works because he can provide the data what the bank requires. He was just
why do you have to put in your personal national bank account data into the software?
So that's only stored locally on your computer. Also,
okay, but still, why do I have to do that?
Because nobody can send
if I only want to buy Bitcoin, not the software, nor anybody else has to know my.
So, I mean, the seller needs to provide it, otherwise the buyer cannot send him the money. That's clear. And on the other side, usually all the banks are, when I receive from you the money, I see your bank account and your name on my bank statement. Nearly 90% of the banks are displaying this information. So even if we would not provide this data, the seller will see it anyway because most banks are displaying the money from where it comes. But then another important issue is there is a complicated scam model which is used in online platforms. I'm not sure if I should explain it. It's not so interesting and relevant. It's a little bit complicated. If you like, I can explain you afterwards. But to protect against this scam, we require also that you put the trade ID into the reference text. So when you are the buyer, you send me the money. In the reference text, in the reason for payment, you need to put in the trade ID, and if this is not correct, then I have to open a dispute. And that's protection against these scams, because there are ways where I, as a seller, could receive the money from a victim who got cheated. I think you have sent me, I released the Bitcoin, you are the scammer, run away with the Bitcoin, and then I get a chargeback from the victim who got cheated by you over another channel like eBay. I can explain it now. So basically, it's, you are running, you are dealing on something like eBay or there's other platforms, and you are selling an iPhone to somebody. So you tell him their account number, so he has to pay you. You tell him he has to pay you whatever, €500, but you give him not your account number, you give him my account number. You do a Bitcoin trade with me, so I receive the €500 from this victim. I think you have paid me and released the Bitcoin to you.
I can't follow you.
Yeah, so but it's luckily it never happened with Bisq, but we heard it from other people, and to protect against it, it's required that the receiver of the field has to check that he's receiving it really from the trade here and not some other random person.
But in case of an arbitration, my bank data can be accessed by the arbitrator, or
the arbitrator also sees the. So when a dispute opens, the arbitrator gets all the data because he needs it for verifying.
Okay. But otherwise, it's only stored on my computer.
Yeah. When there is no dispute, the arbitrator doesn't know anything, so it's really completely private between the two traders. And the two traders in the fiat exchange, they are exchanging the data what's required for sending the money. With altcoins, they only know the other altcoin address, which is basically anonymous. Sorry, she was first.
I have a three-part question, really. What's the real value of using your service? Are you for the buyer? Are you for the seller? What's the incentive for using this service?
For me?
No, for us who are, are selling your service. What's the incentive for using your service?
It's privacy, yeah. I mean, when you use another like Kraken or Coinbase or whatever, you have to register. They know exactly how much Bitcoin you have bought. where the Bitcoin, on which address they are, where you send out the Bitcoin. And in Bitcoin, all the transactions are connected. So it's a graph of all the connections. When they know your first Bitcoin and you are using it for make a donation to WikiLeaks, they know that you have donated to WikiLeaks. And they can follow all the stuff what you're doing. You have basically zero privacy on your financial transactions, and that's, privacy is a human right. Most people are not very aware of this because we got brainwashed the last 10 years or 20 years. But it's a really important thing, because when you are scared, when you think the US don't like that you're donating to WikiLeaks, and then you're not donating to WikiLeaks, you have lost freedom. You're not a free person anymore, because you cannot act like you would like without the threat of some entity which you don't want to obey, basically. And Bisq is the only exchange where you have this privacy. I mean, there are a few other, like Shapeshift and Local Bitcoin, where you have at least a better level, but not on this level like Bisq.
Are you also cheaper because you avoid a lot of...
Sorry?
You avoid a lot of infrastructure like this with the system?
Yeah, exactly. We don't have servers, but I mean, there are a few seed nodes that, like in Bitcoin, when you're first time connecting, you need a address to whom you connect, because you don't know any other nodes, and then you get you learn about the other network, but basically there are no servers. There's basically not much infrastructure.
How much? What were your fees? I kind of missed it. Like, what are your fees?
The fees with the recent release, we increased it. Before it was nearly nothing. It was it was less like the mining fee, or around the mining fee more or less. Now it's so the fee model depends on the amount of what you're exchanging and on the distance to the market price. The better your prices, and it's when you create an offer where you say I want to buy Bitcoin for 100 euro, nobody will take your offer at the end, and it doesn't serve the platform, because only trades are interesting, not offers at the end. When you make an offer with the market price, or very close to the market price, it's good for the platform, and you pay less fee. So it depends on the distance to the market price and on the amount. When it's a one Bitcoin trade with 1% distance, then it's when you're the maker, I think it's 0.003 Bitcoin. That's around.
It's
maybe 8 euro at the moment.
But it doesn't depend on the price. But it does depend on the amount of Bitcoin or not?
Yeah, on the amount. So when you only buy a 0.1 Bitcoin, it's 10 times less. And when your when the distance to the market price is 1%, it's this 8 euro. When it's, for instance, 9%, then it's 3 times higher. But it's a very bad.
So if you're 1% of the market price, what percentage of the amount of Bitcoin is the fee? So the fee in percentage of the amount of Bitcoin?
It depends on all these parameters. It's with a 1 Bitcoin trade with 1% distance has 0.2% fee.
That's pretty low.
That's quite low. So local Bitcoin has 1% fee, for instance.
What's the maximum fee that you pay in this?
You can only create offers with, I think, 20% market distance, and then it's the square root of this. That's around 4 or 5 times of this. Also, would be then more or less 1%. When you have an offer with 20% market distance, you would pay 1% fee.
But you don't really incur costs when people don't take the order, right? So why?
Sorry.
Why do you make the price higher for larger distance when the offer is not taken anyway, right? Like.
Because it's not a database. I mean, in a normal exchange, they put a load of data in the database, and there's basically no cost. Here it's a peer-to-peer system, so when you are creating an offer, this offer gets flooded in the network, and you have to refresh it all the time. So the more offers are online, the more busy becomes the network, and every peer get this traffic. So it's a cost for the whole network, and it doesn't scale endlessly. So when we have 1 million offers, it will not work anymore, and it doesn't help the network, because offer with 20% nobody takes, basically.
What's the longevity of an offer? How long does it live?
Endless. As long as you have to be online, because when you're the offer maker, and somebody takes your offer, your computer has to be online, because there's then this multi-sig deposit is created, and there's a handshake, And yeah, the system, because there are no servers, you are basically the server for the other guy, and the other is, yeah, you are communicating with the other peer, or your computer. You can sleep, but the computer needs to be online. And yeah.
And if you're offline, the other party is just waiting for you to come online, or?
When you are the offer maker and you go offline, your offer gets removed from the network, because otherwise, yeah, nobody can take it.
It's like a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. It's a time to live. It's after 4 minutes, offer get removed, and every 3 minutes, more or less, you are sending something like a heartbeat that you are still alive, and then the offer gets refreshed and stay online. And for these reasons, the fee is required. I mean, it's also the business model. But beside this, when somebody would fork the project without fee, it will not survive, because you can spam it and break down the network. And any peer-to-peer network is a common resource, and yeah, when you don't add costs by using the common resource, it will get overused and will get destroyed, basically. Would be the easiest attack on such a network.
Does the arbitrator should be online all the time? So let's say I'm thinking, make it like I'm multi-sig right now, so I have a key and he has the key, and do the cert key.
Yeah, the arbitrate is usually mostly online, but if you are opening a dispute and the arbitrate is not online, the message is stored in the network, like a mailbox message, more or less. And when the arbitrator goes online, he's at least once or every 2 days online. It's like in the customer care, when you open a ticket at Amazon, it takes maybe 1 or 2 days until you get a reply, but they get the message and we work on this. And here it's also, I mean, we cannot ask the arbitrator to always react in 5 minutes, but yeah, there's a certain time where he should react, and where also the peers, when the arbitrator is requesting something from a peer, he has also maximum 2 days to react. When he doesn't react after 2 days, he has lost the case. Maybe I'm really enjoying all the discussions and very good questions. I just feel that we are running out of time for the second part, for the DAO, and it would be a pity, because especially maybe interesting from the power party perspective. So maybe I make a cut here, and if you want to discuss later, I'm there, and we can go on. Or after the DAO as well, I would like to leave a little bit time for DAO-specific questions after the DAO part. But of course, you can mix the content when you have some burning questions.
Is that you?
No. Well, should we make a break? A small break? Yeah. Small break.
Good luck, man. When you finish with the up I know. He's Pakistani. Okay, that's. I know it's not the same thing. You always like fighting.
Can you name him? It's an Indian.
Yeah.
Are you on the Meetup group?
Today I didn't sign up.
Oh, yes. He must be in this group. Bitcoin Spain group.
It's already 12.
Yeah, but if you want to get in the system, at some point you need to pay. So you can only do trading in your
peer-to-peer. And if it works, you kind of like private. The fee is still like 20% for like a regular transaction. That's really good. Because you buying one Bitcoin is associated with
and that's the point. All things where you can buy cryptos, whatever.
and 1% of the market price is pretty much. If it's less than the market price,
Who keeps the
you pay 1%. And you have like this direct privacy. Idea is to use your signed by the bank. Every page you get from the bank is signed by the bank. So they can kind of trust it. So it's really safe. So basically, copy this side page, you need like access to that. You send it to them, they like get trust, you use the bank page. The only question is like, I think like nothing is your page. Is that way to contact you say, oh, send it to our person, yeah, they're hard to reach. The 60s or whatever. Really weird.
Also das ist halt nicht wirklich sicher. Wenn jetzt halt die Preise, das ist feste Preise, wenn nur Monero von dieses
I have it because of Dutch. I already have it for a long time. Actually, for me it's big here because in Germany if you take money from the ATM, this ATM costs you money. ING, they're a new player, they said, okay, we don't pay fees anymore. So you use the bank here, and you don't pay for fees, so you take the ATM. And if they would, you can also pay with and works depending on where. You have to deposit. Yeah, but I think because I was like, I put an account in to see how much income is. And I was like, I put it 0 because I don't want to take a pay. But then they rejected I also think you have to fill a lot of things. You press it and they say, they don't say like it's because of this. I also did it one time. Yeah. One time it worked. I did it first time I was like, the problem was I had to say, I did something I had to look for that. The second time I tried again, and I was stopped because I said, because I didn't want to do anything. But I don't think that's what they mean. They mean
this is Shutdown production. In einem anderen Fall, wenn sie streiken, dann mache ich dann sage ich halt, kein Geld oder wenn das nicht passiert, gibt es diese Sicherheit. Let's say dictator shutdown.
Buy something, immediately I get an email like, oh, your credit card is charged. You can buy everything. So I said, you charge me randomly. I will and you just charge me. You don't get, it's just kind of annoying. You suddenly decide to buy something. Kind of puts money on it. It's just like where you send money there. Charge it on the user. As soon as you use it, you get an email. I like that much better. They cannot charge you for it. Before I had a credit card which is like a limit, like 5,000. Because I have to buy trading at 5,000. That's really the problem because here's the point. Companies, my friends said, America kind of hiding said like, people buy a lot of guns, they're buying guns, and then they started getting involved. If you have this system, it's the way to we can be charging it's really annoying when you have money, you buy a ticket now or something, I have the card, but I don't use it because it was so confusing and it's not a number, it's a number. I was like, every time you have to sign it's so weird. Oh yeah, you can make a monkey drive. Put it on the cards. Yeah. So there was a bit of power. Yeah, I never wrote it. Yeah, you're supposed there's so many cards you can use directly, and then they use the credit cards. And then everyone has to put their signature in a stack, and they have to take everything off. And someone has to check everything. But they have to make a copy of every thing. It's crazy. Both sides are low price. Both sides have a cheaper exchange has to be integrated bank account and everything on the money. Get a lawyer, pay a lot of this is direct what's cheaper? This is the
deswegen ist zum Beispiel so, dass bei Bitcoin
exchange is like the buyer and seller on both sides. They can just
Bitcoins, die gemeint werden.
buy this person and sell this person.
Deswegen sind die auch
It's
sehr
kind of
viel
a
als
market.
andere.
Everybody can like
Ja, weil
the buyers and
Bitcoin
lower on price, the sellers are higher. And there's also some people that kind of mention meet the buyers and then it's kind of symmetric. But the system itself is on both sides. They say 0.2%.
Insofern gibt es keine Datenspur, die das hier führt. Du hast das über keine Historie gehabt. Und wir haben eine lange Historie.
The first step is to say yes. The second step is you send money actually. But there's some time between it. You say yes and you send the price can change. If the price is lower, it might be you want to buy it, you want to buy it, and suddenly the price is like, you're like, well, I don't want to buy anymore. So that's always a problem. This is only one side, so it's not fair. What they do is like basically they want to buy conversations and basically a bit more Bitcoin. And this is not for selling.
Everybody ready for continuing?
The point is basically a bit more.
More.
You really have to go through the whole process, like after.
Now in the second part we talk about this decentralized organization probably most people are not really familiar with this term. That's even a more exotic beast like Bitcoin itself. I want to give a very high-level overview. What's the idea about the decentralized autonomous organization? And I think the easiest when you put all the three words and think what it means and what's in this term. Decentralized, it's more or less clear that it's an organization. Organization I also don't need to explain. It can be anything. It can be a company. It can be an NGO. Any form or organizational form where people are working or doing anything together is meant with this. So it's a very broad definition. And decentralized, I take it really serious with decentralized. There are many people who say they're decentralized and running server and nothing is decentralized. When you look closer in Google, Google, you can also see that interpret that Google is decentralized because their servers are distributed and they're not having one fat server who is doing all the stuff. But that has nothing to do with real decentralization. And for me, a stronger term would be even censorship resistance. And that's the only reason why you need decentralization, because that's the only way how to get censorship resistance. And as Bitcoin is censorship resistant, without censorship resistance it would not have any value, because any powerful entity could apply their power on this organization and can force them to do whatever they want, like they're doing, like the Americans have done with WikiLeaks, that they forced the banking system to block their bank accounts and they couldn't take donations. That was a classic example of a model of a system which is not censorship resistant and which is basically a failed system in my opinion. And all these DAOs also, in my opinion, should achieve this level of censorship resistance. Otherwise, probably it would be easier to make a normal classical company, and it's less complicated.
I mean, to create such systems like Bitcoin or DAOs, it doesn't come for free. It has much more complexity. It has problems on scalability or speed or efficiency. So you have to pay for this property, and only when you really need this property, when you have a system which requires censorship resistance, you should think to do it. Otherwise, I think it's a waste of energy. And the most difficult word in the 3 words of DAO is probably autonomous. And in my opinion, with autonomous, it means that it's very connected for me with the censorship resistance word, because it's only censorship resistant when there is not one person or one group of persons who is doing all the stuff, and when they are stepping out, the project will fail. Like usually in a company, when the CEO would stop the company, nobody will go on because they don't have the skills, they don't have the legal requirements, whatever. So it's very focused on certain persons, on certain group of persons, and when they would get cut out, the project is basically dead. And with autonomous, it means here that it doesn't matter. If the project lives, it's a living entity in a way. When in Bitcoin we have such a DAO basically. It's decentralized, it's a kind of organization, all the people who are developing the code, it's a completely open a group of developers, and it's completely open and permissionless, anybody can join and can work for them. And it's autonomous in a way. When one developer steps out or get compromised by an agency or whatever, then there are many others who are taking their place. So it's really living on its own in a way. And that's for me the meaning of a DAO. It's a living being. It's a new organizational form which lives in its own by the participants, by the network, and by the people who care about it. Now I want to talk more in concrete about the Bisq DAO concept. A DAO can be anything. I would not to say that this is now the best model or whatever. It's a model which I developed for Bisq, where it's very difficult to find a model which is really decentralized, and I didn't find a better model. That's mainly and applied it to especially to those problems or to those requirements in the exchange context of Bisq in this project. And the main reason why we created a DAO is because we didn't want to create a company, because a company is not decentralized. They can, especially when it would be in America, they can always request your data and so on. And we wanted to run it really like a community project, so that the community, the people who are using it, who are working on it, they are basically the owners. They are forming together a decentralized company or a decentralized project. And when you don't have when you're not following the traditional model, I mean, software is not growing on trees, it's a lot of work. And people have to pay the bills. It's even if I could do it because I had some savings or so, there are not many other people who have the same situation, that they can live 3.5 years without work and without earning money. So to find more people to work is very difficult, and at the end that's one of the main problems what I had so far. So the usual models with startups is they go to a VC, to a venture capitalist, ask for money, get some seed funding, or now they're doing this ICO and get millions for nothing basically. But let's say in the normal world, they provide something, and then the investors step in, and then you create a company and make contracts, and you're basically in the traditional system. It's not really decentralized, because when you want to do something what the investor don't want, you get the pressure that you say, okay, when you don't do it, you don't get, in half a year you need money again, and I'm out. So you're under pressure in a way, and you're not independent. So I never was interested to go that route, and then we started once with a donation model. We had a kind of like a crowdfunding, but it failed because people are not giving a lot with donations. They give very tiny amounts. You need to find another model where you give something back to people, where people not only have the good feeling that they supported now Wikipedia, everybody loves Wikipedia, but I mean, Wikipedia have to ask every few weeks for donations. It's a shame. I mean, it's one of the most important pages on the web. It's probably equal importance or much more important, like what Google is doing. Google have billions and billions, and Wikipedia have maybe 1 or 2 million budget in a year.
and it's completely underfunded. So that's a proof that the donation model simply does not scale and does not work well, because they are creating much more value like other companies who get millions or billions. So those were all the motivation there. I wanted to find a model which fits to the requirements and to the nature of the project, that it's censorship resistant and decentralized, that we wanted to avoid the traditional system, because those would have broken all these properties, and we wanted to have a model where the people who are building it, who are using it, that they are all basically shareholders and users and part of the organization. On the technical side, we are using a color coin model based on Bitcoin. Does anybody know what color coin is about? Yeah, okay, nearly, not many. You can, a color coin is just, you say that a certain unit of money, like you could say this euro note, this €5 note, has a special meaning. We create a company and we want to issue shares between us, depending on what everybody works, and for every month everybody gets a special €5 note, and we mark it in a special way, which cannot be cheated. And then for us, this represents the share. So this €5 note has the value of €5, but the share, the value of the share of this €5 is much higher. It's maybe €10,000, whatever. And it's basically just a convention that a group of people decide, okay, we are using some token which already exists and which has some properties what we want to inherit, like security and tamper-proof. And we are putting it in a special context, and we are giving it a special meaning, which only has a meaning for this group. For everybody else, it's just a €5 note, but for us, it's a share of this company. And the same is here. So we are using Bitcoin, and small amounts, very tiny amounts of Bitcoin. As one Bitcoin consists of 10 to the 8 satoshis. Satoshi is the smallest amount, the smallest unit. And we define that one BSQ, that's the name of the Bisq token, one BSQ is 1,000 Satoshi in Bitcoin, and it has the meaning of something like a share. It's not a share because it's something new which doesn't exist in the normal world, but it's a token of the DAO. And this 1,000 Satoshi has a value of nearly nothing. It's less like 1 cent, or I think 100 or 1,000 part of a cent, of a euro cent. So it's a very tiny value, but hopefully a BSQ token will have a much higher market value, and we are applying and using then this token in the DAO concept. And the main motivation is that we find more contributors, more people who are working for the DAO, and they can earn money in a new way, which is outside of the classical traditional model like VC money or whatever. So when people are working like a developer, or people who are helping on marketing or promotion, whatever, anybody who is creating some value for the project, he can make a request for compensation, and we have a cycle. So every end of the month, there's a time window where people can make this request, and the second, after this request, the stakeholders can vote on this. So say you're a developer for Bisq and you have done whatever, you have some coding, and you say, I would like to get something like €5,000 for this work. You look at the market price, let's say one Bisq is €1, so it's easy to make the conversion. And when the actual market price is €1, so it's then also 5,000 BSQ. So you create a compensation request, you say, I've done this and this work, here's the GitHub link, so everybody can verify what I've done and can evaluate it. And I would like 5,000 BSQ for my work. Then there is a voting period of a few days, and every BSQ stakeholder who has already tokens can vote either to accept or decline or to ignore your request. So when I'm a developer, I look at your code, I say, wow, that's great, you should get this money, or I say the opposite, I say, no, that's not good enough, or it's too much, it's too expensive, then I decline it. And of course, there's out-of-channel discussions before you make your request, you can communicate, hey, look, I've done this, is this amount more or less reasonable or whatever. But the pure DAO model is only that you make the request and then the stakeholders are voting on this request if it gets accepted or not. Additionally to the requests, the DAO stakeholder can vote on all parameters of the DAO, like the trading fee, the amount of the trading fee, which is the 0.2% when it's a 1 Bitcoin trade with 1% market distance. Maybe the stakeholders say, no, that's too high or too low, we want to change it. And they can vote on a change and can move it in one or the other direction. And a lot of other, all kind of important decisions can be done by voting by the stakeholders. And when your compensation requests get accepted, then technically you are creating, when you are creating your compensation request, you are creating a Bitcoin transaction where you send yourself this amount of BSQ, also this 5,000 BSQ, that's whatever, 50 million Satoshi. So you create a Bitcoin transaction where you send yourself 50,000 Satoshi. That's not a high value, that's whatever, maybe 20 euro or something. And it's a transaction to yourself, so you don't need to trust anybody. But it's just a Bitcoin transaction before the voting has been finished. And only in the case when you get accepted by the voting, it becomes a BSQ transaction. Then the whole network, every user is running this code and verifying everything, and then the network say, okay, this guy has created a transaction, and we have proven that the work was valuable, so now this transaction is treated as a BSQ transaction. Your Bitcoin get colored, they become colored coins, BSQ, and have then a much higher value than the value on the market, like 5,000 euro. And with that we have a decentralized issuance model, because without this trick, then there would be a foundation or any person who make then the transaction, say, okay, I send you now 5,000 Satoshi, but then this person is the central point of failure again. And with that model we have distributed it to the voting process, so all the stakeholders are basically the decision makers. When they give you the green light, then you have basically the license to print money. You have basically the license to print money in the value of 5,000 BSQ. And of course, yeah, the BSQ can be traded, so you can we keep the questions a little bit later? Otherwise I feel that I'm losing the track and we don't have too much time. The BSQ can be traded over Bisq, so you can sell it immediately on the market and get then or you can keep it or whatever. And in this model, I mean, it starts everything with the initial distribution for all the past work. So I'm basically, and I had made a request in the last weeks where I asked all the people in the community, when you have done anything which was valuable, and that was already when people have traded a lot, they helped the project with liquidity, so they could make a request, a compensation request, and they will get some BSQ in this initial distribution, in this Genesis distribution, where we are basically taking the money what we have on our donation address, that's 25 Bitcoin, quite a lot of money now, so something like 70,000 euro, and we are distributing this 25 Bitcoin to all the people who have contributed to the project, and all the developers, everybody who has worked on the project get his share, depending on the amount of work. And it's technically Bitcoin, so we are really distributing 25 Bitcoin to many people, and it has at least this value. So when you have done a lot of work and you get half a Bitcoin for this, then yeah, it's half a Bitcoin, it's 2,000 euro nearly. It cannot be lower, but of course the BSQ value should be much higher. So when you have really worked for 2 years or so, you should get something like whatever, 100, 200,000 euro for your work. And yeah, in the software there will be then this special transaction, this Genesis transaction will be hard-coded, so the software knows, okay, all the outputs of this transaction are valid BSQ, and then you can, when you receive some BSQ, you can trade it, whatever you do with it. And yeah, it starts with this Genesis distribution where we have 2.5 million BSQ created, and then every month we create new BSQ when we have whatever 10 developers and we have to print every month something like 100,000 euro in BSQ. We're creating every month 100,000 BSQ when one BSQ would be €1.
So we are creating inflation. So the money gets more and more, and basically the value of one unit gets lower with inflation. And to have a counter direction to inflation, we have a deflationary side on the trading fee. And so the users who are trading, they pay this trading fee, which is at the moment in Bitcoin. At the moment it goes to the arbitrator because he's the guy who is working for the network. And in future, the user can choose to pay the trading fee either in Bitcoin or in BSQ. When you have BSQ already and want to pay the fee in BSQ, you get the 90% discount. So we want to incentivize the people to use BSQ instead of Bitcoin, because it's required for the economic model that this BSQ get burned, also they get uncolored. You make a transaction where you're basically destroying the value of your BSQ. So you put in a very tiny amount of BSQ and it's not BSQ at the end anymore. And by removing the total amount, or by lowering the total amount of BSQ, we are creating deflation. So when in the beginning there are 2.5 million BSQ, and then after half a year there are only 2 million BSQ, every BSQ unit is more, it has a higher value because there are less tokens there. And that's a way how we are basically distributing the trading fee to all the stakeholders depending on the stake. So when you have 20% of BSQ, you receive, of course, or your tokens become more valuable in the relation like somebody else with 1%. But it's completely equally distributed, and we have a deflationary pressure with the trading fee payment, and we have the inflationary pressure with the compensation requests. And of course, to find the right balance in the early time, it's like in every startup, you have to invest more like you get back from revenue. So the first year we have pushed through inflation because we want to boost the project, and there's a lot of work open to be done. And the trading fee will not be enough to pay the bills, basically. But over time, the revenue from the trading fee might become higher, and then, of course, you have more deflation, and it pushes up the price as well. And the balance between both is up to the stakeholders, because they can change the amount of trading fee, and with that they have a very strong tool how to influence the monetary policy. Basically, all the stakeholders are in the role of a central banker who are doing adjustment. Yeah, they want more or less inflation or deflation, and yeah, defining basically how the project develops in future, how much revenue will really be distributed. Maybe when there are mostly traders, users, a stakeholder, maybe they decide they want to have super low trading fee and not much money is left for paying developers. And then maybe nobody is really working on development side because they say, no, not enough money, they don't pay. And maybe the project is good enough that they don't need it. Then, okay, then that's the decision of the stakeholders. And then maybe there is quite the equilibrium that there is not a lot of money burned and not a lot of money created. But probably there will be a good balance, because I think such a project needs to be maintained and improved all the time. And for covering this work of 5 to 10 full-time people, we need to burn at least this same amount to have the equilibrium, but of course it can go in one or the other direction. Yeah, that's the main concept. I mean, there are much more details, but I don't want that you get lost completely with so much information. We are planning, I mean, we at the moment, it was planned to have such a roadmap, like we wanted to start already with the Genesis distribution a few weeks ago. And then, then when the second phase of the DAO is implemented, that's still not implemented, this voting and compensation request, then the compensation request really starts. So the first few months or so, it would be only the Genesis distribution and not more. And the people who are working for the project don't get paid every month. But as soon as that is implemented, then the second phase would be there. In the third phase, there would be implemented an important feature for the decentralized arbitration system. I will explain it a little bit later. And then in the fourth phase, there we would emphasize the reputation. With reputation, it means that the people who are working for the project, the more they're working for the project, the more reputation they're earning. And we have this data already from the very beginning, because with every compensation request which is successful, you are basically building up reputation, and this data is in the blockchain, it's there. We are just not using it in the beginning because we don't have time to implement all in the same time. But over time, the reputation should become more important for voting. So the plan from my side is to have 70% of the weight on reputation and 30% on the weight on stake. And the reason behind this is because I believe that the people who are working on the projects, they are much better informed, they have much more incentive because they want to go on with working. They know the project much better, like a trader who has bought a lot of tokens and then make a stupid decision because he is not well informed. Maybe he just wants to make a short, he wants to make quick money, and then the next month he crashed the price and make some money with shorting when he knows, when he's a big whale who has really control. So I don't trust too much people with a lot of money. I trust much more people who work and who are creating real value and not just speculative value. And that's the reason why I want to put the majority weight on the reputation. But at the end, that will be decided by the stakeholders already. Because yeah, this my target with 70%, it will maybe start with 50%, and then the stakeholders can vote how far they want to go. If it's 60, 70, 80%, whatever they want to do. And then in the fifth phase, there will be some further improvements for governance. Because I don't think when it become really bigger, developers are often not the best managers or not interested. Maybe they just want to do development and don't want to do all the time the evaluation if this request was good or not, and do a lot of this management functions. Basically everybody who is voting is a manager of the project. And there will be some requirement for more specialization and more communication, also for communication tools, because those people who are really working, they need to have their, not closed, but to have the protected communication areas, not like Reddit. When somebody knows Reddit, that's the opposite of this. I mean, every troll, every idiot can be very loud and this can create a lot of noise there, and then it's very hard to get out the signal from the noise, and it creates a lot of damage for those people who want to really do work and so on. So I think there will, and yeah, decision making, the voting alone will probably not be enough. You need to create more complex decision-making tools. And that brings me back to the prior parties, as I was very impressed by the liquid democracy model, what they're using. And I think something like this, liquid democracy would be something which would fit very well to that model, where people who have some suggestions, they make some proposals, and then it needs to go up, and then anybody can, yeah, delegating of voting is very important, because maybe somebody's just specialist in coding but not in marketing or in other areas, and they want to delegate the vote to somebody else, and all those stuff is already implemented in liquid democracy. And either to use then such models or to develop something own that's in this fifth phase, which is future, whatever, hopefully soon, but probably realistically maybe in 2 years or so. And yeah, the decentralized arbitration system, the way how we manage to make it secure is that, and that's a great thing with the color coin, you can define the rules. That's completely up to you. We are inheriting all the rules from Bitcoin, so we cannot do anything which would be invalid in Bitcoin. You cannot spend more money like you put in the transaction. So it has to be a valid Bitcoin transaction, but on top of that you can define whatever rule you want. We want to keep it as simple as possible because complexity is the enemy of security. But for the arbitration system, we want to have the security deposit. Our initial plan before the DAO was to use a kind of like a hierarchy of arbitrators, and at the end me on top probably as the founder. So when you want to become an arbitrator, you have to lock up a lot of Bitcoin to a multi-sig transaction, and I'm the key holder, so when you would cheat and steal money, then we can basically take your security deposit and you don't get it back. But then we are just kind of like moving the trust problem further up a hierarchy, so they don't need to trust you because you are, it's protected by the security deposit, but they have to trust me, and when it's really big and there are 20 or 50 arbitrators and it's really a lot of money, it's a problem, especially a security problem. When I would get hacked and my keys would get stolen, it still can fail. So it was not really a perfect model, but we didn't find a better. But luckily with the DAO and the covered coin, we have now a better model, because now you can make a security deposit to yourself. So we don't need to trust anybody. You are creating a transaction with BSQ, which you send to yourself, and we are marking this with a op return. So we are marking this transaction that it's a special transaction, login transaction. So you're logging in whatever amount, maybe 50,000 euro in BSQ to become an arbitrator. So when you would steal an amount of 10,000 euro, you will lose the 50,000 euros, so it's a very bad idea to scam. And when you want to stop become when you want to revoke from your arbitration after 3 months, maybe you say, no, that's no fun, I want to get back my money, you make a second transaction, again to yourself, which another op return type, which the network understands to interpret as an unlocked transaction, and this is then time locked. We say that, you can send it to yourself, nobody will accept when you would send it to somebody, to a trader, because everybody sees that's an unlocked transaction, and this is basically not valid money for a period of, say, 2 months. And with that we have some time. And after these 2 months, it's a completely normal BSQ, and you can trade, you can do whatever you want. But we have now this login. When you're an arbitrator, it's logged in, and you cannot do anything with this money. And when you log out, you still cannot do anything with the money for a period of 2 months, and then it's unlocked. And when you would cheat in this time just before you are revoking, then there are some victims who got scammed by you. They can make a request for confiscation. Sounds very scary, and is scary, and we are taking care that it cannot be abused. It needs, of course, they need to have really completely bulletproof evidence. So it cannot be, I think that arbitrators a little bit scammy, let's confiscate. Of course, that will not work. It has to be bulletproof evidence, and then the whole community, or the stakeholders, can vote on the confiscation request. And when there is a very high percentage, something like 80 or 90%, need to agree on this confiscation, then your locked up funds get confiscated, and that happens in a hard fork basically. So we will release a new software where this new rule that this transaction is not valid, so you never can spend it as BSQ. That the users, additionally to the stakeholders, the users need to accept this confiscation by updating the software. So when there would be just a small group of stakeholders and they want to steal money from an arbitrator by confiscating or want to create damage, then the users need as well agree, because when users say, no, that's scammy, what they're doing, that's not correct, then they will not update to the new software. By updating, they are basically agreeing that the confiscation is correct, and only then it will be really applied. So it's a lot of security steps. I think, when it still goes wrong, the whole model is wrong, and then probably it's better that it dies away. So, and of course, when the stakeholders would do something sketchy, there's always the fork risk. I mean, everything is open source. When people will do unethical things, where a strong group of opponents will think, no, that's not okay what they're doing, they can fork the project away and try to build up their own network and get their users. And it's not easy, of course, but for strong reasons it works. And we have seen it with Ethereum, with the hard fork. That was such a strong reason. In other cases, like with Zcash, some people also tried to do a hard fork with Zcash, and it didn't succeed because they didn't have enough ethical background to succeed. So it's a kind of like it's a decentralized regulation in a way. When some people in power are doing wrong things, then the community as a whole can apply their policy and can fork the project away. Yeah, and for me this DAO, I mean, I see in the DAO model a kind of like a new form for governance and for governments, because I think that people who are working together and create some value together, whatever it is, like Wikipedia would be a perfect candidate for a DAO token, a DAO.
when everybody who is writing articles on Wikipedia would receive some DAO tokens for this, even if they have zero monetary value in the beginning, they become monetary value as soon as somebody say, hey, I cannot write on Wikipedia, I don't have the talent, but I really would like to get such a token because I'm such a big fan and really would like to do it. Or I run a restaurant, there's entering somebody and say, hey, I forgot my money, but I have Wikipedia tokens, do you accept them? I say, yeah, I love Wikipedia, give me a free beer. And then it becomes monetary value. And this can happen at any moment. It's nearly impossible to avoid it. When something is bigger and has some value for some people, it becomes monetary value also. Because like a donation, like a street musician, when you give him some money, then you give him some monetary value. And with that it becomes a form of money. A specialized form of money, which carries much more information and context, like the naked money, like euro or Bitcoin also, which has no information because it has no history, and that's important for fungibility and privacy. We don't want to have that all the Bitcoin has all the history how we have earned it. But for certain things, for important stuff, it's a feature also. Like when you make a job interview at Google, your money on your bank account does not help you there. But when you're a software open source developer and have run your blog, this reputation, what you have built up, which has no monetary value because you never earned money by running a blog, and nobody pays you for this. But when you go to a job interview at Google, that becomes a monetary value because it's maybe an important reason that you get the job or not get the job, then earn more the money. So I think the more important the context is, the more important it will become that you use a currency or a token which is more information rich, which carries much more context and information, and with that you're exposed to a policy. Because I mean, if Google decide that a blog, running a blog or being an open source developer is important for them or not, it's their decision. And if you don't like this, go to another company. Maybe there's another company where your money on the bank account is the important thing. And that's probably in the public space. Then you bribe the guy and then you get the job. Or your connection, you know this friend and then you get the job. There are different policies and they apply already now, locally, in certain contexts. And I think it's important because, I mean, we always need policies and regulation and whatever, but we don't want to have it centralized with the big power concentration. And of course, they also don't know, the information is not centralized, so it's very inefficient, it's bad nearly in all aspects. But you need to apply some sort of policy, how people interact, like with all kind of common tragedy of the commons problems, what we have in the world, like global warming or whatever, environmental projects. You cannot solve this by pure free markets because it's not isolated interactions between two traders. It has all these costs to other people, and you cannot really, it's missing the feedback loop. When we are doing a trade and creating damage for other people, we don't get the feedback of this damage. That's externalized to others. And I think when we have new systems, DAOs, and new forms of money, which can be designed like we want it, in which context we need it, we can define the policy and the regulation. Like here, when the arbitrator is scamming, he gets confiscated. It's very hard regulation at the end. But it's only in this context, and when somebody don't like it, he don't need to become arbitrator. And so it's free. It's nobody forced the people to use this. And when other people think that's a bullshit project, we have better ideas how to do it, then they should run their own project and make it better. So it's completely open and permissionless, and I think that might be a new solution for many of the big problems what we have in the world. So I hope the future is brighter, as we see at the moment in America with the fantastic Donald Trump. And but I think we have now the tools in the hand. You can, with the technology what we have, you can build the future, and it's in our hands. If we use it or not, it's in our responsibility at the end. So when you get a little bit motivated, check out Bisq, Bisq.io. I mean, we just renamed from Bitsquare. That's make all the time a mistake still. We had to rebrand because of a trademark issue with an American company. And you will find all the information there, the white paper, download the software, read about, learn about the project, and if you want to contribute, you're more than welcome. Thank you, and if you have any questions, we can go on. You had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, the Bitsquare token, so people can vote on the process on how the Bitsquare token is even distributed in a way, right?
No. The initial distribution I do, mainly because I'm the only guy who really knows what all the people have done. I mean, there are many people who have contributed small parts, like helping with logo design or whatever, and all this information is collected here, and yeah, other people in the team only know a part of it, but not the total. It's also, I've built the project, I'm the founder, I'm a developer, and it's basically the donation what I received for the project. I could take it myself. I'm basically donating this money back to the people. It's not, I never made a promise. I always told the people, yeah, when you work for a project, you don't get a promise for any reward in future. We always planned this model, but it was never clear if we can really deliver. It's still not there. And so it's really a donation back. I received donation without any strings attached from people, and now I'm donating back in the relation what people have contributed without any strings attached. So
and the aspect where you had the part of the amount of Bitsquare tokens they can vote versus the amount of people that have some history, the 75% reputation system of stakeholders.
Yeah, that could be in future. So then, with the third phase, in the third or the second phase, when with the decentralized issuance and voting, when this is implemented, we have every month there get created new tokens, and it's already done by voting, so decentralized issuance and management, and yeah, it gets more and more distributed. The more people are working for a project, the more.
Yeah. But this weighting of how much the tokens count, that was voted on itself as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is kind of like, it sounds like something someone can take over.
Sorry?
Because one part could take over the part of voting on this system itself.
Sorry.
Like if there is like 75% that counts for stakeholders, and the stakeholders are a different group than the people that have some history of voting, they might want to vote for a higher stakeholder. You know?
Yeah. I mean, when the stakeholders are managing the project badly, when they're, let's say, there are just a few, and at the beginning there will be just a few people who have really a lot of stake, because there were not so many people who have contributed a lot. There have been not too many full-time people who have worked full-time for the project. And when those will vote all the time to pay themselves a lot of money or whatever, I mean, they are hurting the project. They are managing, they are printing money like hell, and nobody else is interested to join. Or when somebody is working for the project and delivering good work and he get rejected, yeah, I mean, then it's like in a company that you get a good developer and you're rejecting him. Yeah, you're shooting in your own knee at the end. And then also people will become, they will not like this, that it's somehow scammy managed, and people will start to fork it. I mean, the fork risk is a big insurance that when a project is not well managed, then the risk of fork is much higher.
So the best thing is to have a benevolent dictator first, and then switch over to like a shared system when everything is
there. That's more or less the current state in a way, but I try already, and we are already in the process to decentralize this dictator, at least to a few dictators in a way. It's difficult because nothing starts really decentralized. Always like in Bitcoin it was Satoshi, and it's clear to me that I have to also step back in a way. So I will. We are at the moment in the process to discussing the future plan, but when I would stay in my position, I would become too important and people listen too much to me because I'm the founder. So for me it's clear I have to step back and maybe do just a minor role and give away control and power to others. Otherwise it will never be decentralized. And we see this in currencies, in altcoins, those currencies like Ethereum where Vitalik is there. It's not 100% decentralized because everybody's listening about Vitalik's opinion, even if he tries a lot to step back. But yeah,
the people are taking the founders very important and so on. And the other currencies like Euro, where there's no clear leader, it's much more decentralized than Bitcoin itself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the first part there was a question about regulation, and your answer was that there's no custodial.
Yeah.
And now in the second part, my question would be, when there's some earning possibility with a DAO, is there any more concern with regulations?
I mean, all the legal stuff with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is gray area, so you never get any clear answer. We ask for analysis of the whole model of the exchange and the DAO from Swiss lawyers who have done the Ethereum Foundation, so they're one of the best in the space. And they gave more or less the green light, but of course with this, that everything is gray, every country is different, and you never know how to really interpret it. With DAOs and tokens, the main issue is the security laws, and Americans are very strict with this. So 99% of these ICOs which are going around are clearly security tokens, and they're all illegal basically, and they're very high fines for this. And what we are doing different to them, we are not doing an ICO, we are not selling tokens. Like they are asking for money and get 20 millions for a white paper. We have a running system. That's one other thing. When you have already something in place, it's much less risky, like when you have nothing and just ask for investors basically. And we are not doing it at all. We are not selling tokens. We are distributing it. And of course, when you receive some tokens, you can sell it on market. It's your token. It's not my responsibility what you do. And with the issuance, it's another new model. We don't have any dividends, so there's no dividend payment. It's a completely new model which doesn't fit to the existing systems like public companies, whatever, and to the laws which are created for those existing stuff. And yeah, that's the problem of the lawmakers, that they have they see news. I mean, I have a split opinion about it, because I think that what the ICOs are doing, it's a huge damage for everybody. I mean, they are gambling like hell on their. I mean, they are scamming. A lot of people who don't have their information, they get scammed by this. They think, oh, that's interesting and can earn a lot, and then they're losing, of course, because none of those projects, or nearly none, will succeed. When you get 100 millions for a white paper, you will never do the project. You will lie in the Maldives and enjoy life. I mean, you don't have any pressure to do, and it's very difficult to create such a project. There's so much pressure and so on. I mean, when you don't have the pressure on the monetary side as well, nobody will do it. I bet 100,000 euro that 99% of this ICO will never come out with a real product. And that's, probably the same happened with public companies in the beginning of the 20th century. A lot of scam happens, and then the government said, we would like to have this innovation. It's great to have a new form of funding in a way, but we don't want to have the scam, so we put regulation, we make it very difficult. And and all these ICO guys, they are asking for regulation, they are shouting for regulation, and the SEC has already reacted. So for me, they're completely irresponsible, because that regulation might hurt projects like this, which is not scamming, hopefully. And we have to eat. We get the damage what they are creating. They're making the big money, and we have to pay for the damage. And that's one of these problems where I think is connected with this monetary system, where the money has no context, no history. They're making the money isolated, but they're not isolated because they're creating damage where others have to pay the bill for it. And I think that's a big problem in the society, and I hope with new forms of money which are more context connected and which are more, which adds this aspect of responsibility and so on, will help to solve those tragedy of the commons problem.
Where are you with the implementation of your roadmap? At which point are you right now?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Which points of the roadmap are already implemented? Where are you?
Only the Genesis distribution. The second is maybe 20 or 30% implemented, but I count for the first 3 steps or something like 4 to 6 months until it's out. But you never know with software.
But the actual system, when do you think it's usable?
Yeah, usable.
It's now already.
Also, we wanted to start the Genesis distribution already 2 weeks ago, but we made a few changes in our strategy. So we probably will launch all together when everything is really decentralized, and then do it all together, because it's also a little bit of a risk. Also, one risk is when I want to decide, I'm overworked. I mean, I worked like crazy the last time, I need more spare time. And when I would say, okay, I'm out, I have enough, I'm burned out, and I have done the distribution and people have started trading, and then 1 week later the founder says he's out, then people say it's scam. Because they invest maybe in the token, or they buy token because they believe in the project, and then the founder is leaving, that would not work. So I will lose freedom when I do it. I'm not free to make this step. As long as I have not done the distribution, I can do whatever I want. I don't have any debt to the community or to anybody. But when it starts and people are trading it, I have a kind of like, yeah, I cannot do this anymore. So that's one strong reason. Another strong reason is that because of legal risk, especially the SEC, they were they made a statement that basically all the ICO tokens are securities, and if not, they have to prove that they are not securities. And they said already that trading such ICO tokens is illegal. So all the centralized exchanges will probably stop supporting it. And when we are doing it, we are in the gray area in that. I mean, we are not an ICO token, but maybe the SEC don't care. And yeah, when the token is out, we're a little bit more exposed to legal pressure. As long as it's not out, it's we have less attack surface.
And the system doesn't work without the token yet, right? Does the system work without the token?
Yeah. So the system is out 1.5 years, and the trading fees paid in Bitcoin. So the system, the main issue is that we don't have money to pay developers, and we need more developers, and that's.
Which banks do you support? Like with this HTTPS system, whatever. Like you have to support it for every bank, I guess.
Yeah. Also, SEPA in Europe. When you have a SEPA account, you can use it. In England, it's how it's called. I forgot the name. But in UK, there is a special good payment system which is instant. And in America, it's yes. In total, it's something like 10 different payment methods.
On the website, I see like the prices. Like I download the app and I see the order book, or how does it?
Yeah, exactly. When you show you the screen. When
it looks like
this screen is the order book. Here you see the charts of the offers, the buy and sell offers, and when you create an offer, it looks like this. You typing in, I want to buy 1 Bitcoin to this price, or a percentage price, like here it's 10%, on Bitcoin to 10%, and then it's this amount.
And you would say the price is market conform, like it's close to the market price.
On top you see the market price, and this black, that's taken from Bitcoin average, for instance, or from providers who are giving the average market price of Bitcoin, basically from other exchanges, a mix of the price from other exchanges, and so it's an orientation. And when you use the percentage price, it's using this price as you say, I want to buy 1 Bitcoin, which is 1% under the market price. And once somebody is accepting this, get executed at this time when the takeoff starts, the price gets frozen with the current market price.
So you just simply, any SEPA would work with you guys?
Any SEPA account works, And national
in all
bank
currencies
as well.
Different currencies also?
All currencies. Also, every country where you have a bank account or a bank system can be used.
I should try it.
I have a question to the first part of your talk. And so from my understanding, your only use case is privacy for the trading of Bitcoin. Is that correct?
I would say privacy and security, because when you would have used Mt. Gox a few years ago, then I think you would agree that security is very important, because many people have lost a lot of money. I mean, it was, I think, 600 million euro got lost. It's not, and it happens every few months. Bitfinex and whatever, Bitcoin E now. And security in a centralized system only can work more or less with a lot of regulation when it becomes so difficult. And even banks get robbed all the time, or they are robbed and also they lose a lot of money with hackers. They just don't publish it. I knew 2 guys who were working, or 1 guy who was working in an Austrian bank, and they lost millions every month, and they didn't know how they lose it. I mean, they just don't care because they have so much money. And yeah, when you run a company where there's money, you're a honeypot for all the hackers, and it's a race, it's an arm race. I mean, of course you can become better and better and better, but at some point maybe they are better. It's often enough one time that they are better, and then your money is gone, or the money of the user, because you're bankrupt. And when you are running a company where you have 100 billions of the money of the users, no insurance, nobody will pay this. The users have to pay, they lose their money. And yeah, that's also the reason why we have all this regulation, because that happened as well with banks in the early years in 20th century or so. And yeah, with a lot of regulation that it gets so complicated every step and so much requirements, it became a little bit more safe, and that happened already also in the Bitcoin space. It's not so risky anymore like 4 or 5 years ago, but for me the core property of Bisq is privacy protection, because there you don't have any alternative basically.
Can I use PayPal?
No, because PayPal is very easy to make a chargeback, a bank chargeback.
Okay.
And then it's super unsafe. You buy Bitcoin from me, send me the money, and the day later you bring your money back.
At the bank I can also do a chargeback?
In SEPA at least it's very difficult. You need to provide real proof, and when you're a scammer, it's not only one time, you want to repeat it, and when you ask every week your bank to make a chargeback, then you get flagged, and you get a serious question for your bank, or you get kicked out. So in SEPA at least the risk is super low. I mean, we had one chargeback in America with with this clear exchange. It was, yeah, so far one. When we get too many chargebacks, we will kick out the payment method, because then it's like PayPal, it's not safe. We are planning additional security measurements, but that's not clear yet exactly how we do it.
How can I trade altcoins?
Yeah, that's out of system as well. So when you want to buy Ethereum with Bitcoin, you have to send, when you want to buy it, you get the Ethereum from somebody else, so you send your Ethereum address to somebody, to the seller, and the seller sends you on your Ether address the Ether that's out of system on your Ether wallet or web page. And when you receive it, it's the Bitcoin is always one part of the trade. So you cannot make Ether to Monero. That doesn't work. So it always has to be Ether to Bitcoin or Monero to Bitcoin. And the Ether part would be then like the fiat part. And yeah, you have perfect privacy, because it's just the address what you know. You don't, with banks, you usually know the name or the bank account. There are a few payment methods where you only know the email address or telephone number or account number.
Your system strictly operates on the Bitcoin blockchain, and then I can use whatever other currency that I want.
We are supporting at the moment 140 more or less altcoins. And yeah, in the future probably we'll delegate this to the DAO stakeholders so they can decide which get added or not.
All that your system does is transmit the address, and then call for a confirmation.
Yeah, only the traders exchange the address, and they have to do themselves the lookup in the block explorer in the wallet. That when you see, okay, I've received data, and now I confirm. And that can be automated in the future, because like the are more developed like the banks. And you can look up this data in the block explorer of the altcoin, and then we can do it automatically, but that's not implemented yet. So many questions? I think he was already.
When I buy Bitcoin, a total stranger gets my bank account data. Did you have any problems that anybody was collecting bank account data from these trades, and did any mischief, or did try to do mischief?
When I have your bank account data, I cannot really do much.
I know, but
still. I mean, of course, it has a little bit, and some people are complaining about this. It's just a lack of alternatives. I mean, when you want to buy, the only alternative is basically face-to-face, but then you're limited to a local space. And it's very risky. I would not do it in many countries, because you never know if you have a knife in the back afterwards. When somebody knows, you're buying 5 Bitcoin now and carry quite a lot of money with you, it's very difficult.
But my question was whether there had been any problems about this, or that somebody was collecting.
No, so far no. I think all the problems, the only real problem was this one chargeback. That was a real scam. Luckily it was just $300, it wasn't a lot of money.
but all the other problems are basically software problems, usability. There was no dispute. It was never really that somebody were arguing, no, I sent it and no, I didn't. When there's something a little bit strange, I usually try to get a lot of information, like this page Steiner. So we take, and when we're not sure, we ask the people to send back the money. So when we do a trade, and I'm not sure that you are a scammer, I received the euro from you, then in doubt I send it back to you, and then the chargeback risk is also gone and everything. And when you would have done such a scam with this triangular scam, yeah, everything would be, because when in this triangular scam I got it from somebody else, so I send it back to the bank account where I received it, and everything is cancelled out. So we are very careful, yeah, when there's any doubt, we're doing something like this. And so far, the only problems, main problems are with banks in America mainly, because they're completely bad in America, the banks.
So the same thing that he asks could be, I don't know, maybe they think that's fishy or that's money laundering or whatever, so maybe they claim that most people, a lot of people that are in there are probably dark people, bad people, so if the state just would initiate some address collecting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that in local Bitcoin friends in America that half of the offers are from agents who try to fish. In America there's a law with the money transmitter law is very, so when you're a professional trader and you're buying and selling Bitcoin all the time, you're not doing it for you privately, you become basically an exchange in a way. So you are doing money transmitting for other people in a way. And I heard at least that with local Bitcoin there have been some cases, and they try to fish with higher amounts. With local Bitcoin I think there's no limit or very high limits. And yeah, when you're dealing with 10,000 euro or whatever, or I think it was even higher, then they try to get this person and then bring them into troubles by saying it was a money transmitter without license. Yeah, here in Bisq it's half a Bitcoin, and maybe we lower it. We want to keep it basically around 1,000 euros now, because Bitcoin was going up like crazy. Yeah, maybe in the next release we're lowering again to come back to more or less 1,000 euro. And those amounts, I mean, they are interested in the big fishes, not in the. And as said before, it's always the bank. I mean, when you do 100,000 euro a month on your bank account, you get flagged like hell there. So you cannot do this basically. You can do it in small amounts, and that's considered as private stuff. So the states, governments are still not so aggressive that you have to. You cannot do even small trades with 1,000 euro that they will come after you. But yeah, the main problem is I would like to find a solution without the banks, but if anybody has an idea, I'm very open for this, but I don't know one.
So if I want to buy Bitcoin, from your standpoint, would there be any reason to choose a German vendor or German seller, or would you say you can choose somebody from Europe, it doesn't make any difference?
When you want to buy...
I want to buy in Germany Bitcoins.
In Germany?
In Germany.
Germany is one of the worst countries with Bitcoin, because local Bitcoin, for instance, is not allowed here, because they say that, I think they say basically that everybody who is buying or selling Bitcoin is a money transmitter and need a license. And I mean, local Bitcoin is a company, so it was easy to act against them. I don't know really how, I mean, the legal system is so grey and so crazy. For me, it reminds me of the early days of the internet. I knew a friend in these days who has bought a modem with 56K, and that was a crime. You could go to jail in this time in the 90s. Because there were very strict telecom laws, and it was prohibited to use a modem which is faster like the telecom allows, and that was something like 28K. It really happens that he, in his music studio, a guy from the telecom entered and made a lot of troubles and really threatened him, because he has this, they did that there was more traffic like usually, and they threatened him, I think, even with jail, with a fine of jail. I mean, today we are laughing about this because it's completely ridiculous. And I hope in a few years we are laughing about these discussions, because it's ridiculous as well. People who are doing private stuff and exchanging value, that they become criminal. I mean.
But did I understand you correctly? You even recommend to use somebody outside of Germany to avoid this legal conflict?
No, I don't recommend anything. Everybody needs to know and themselves what they want to do. But I said that Germany is one of the worst countries because with this that they take this so strict. I just know it with local Bitcoin. I don't think in any other country in Europe local Bitcoin is prohibited. And people are, I mean, they use then the IP check, and of course with a VPN you can easily circumvent it. So there are for sure traders in Germany who use local Bitcoin, but they are for sure more exposed like in other countries in Europe where the laws are not so crazy. But everybody needs to know this himself. I mean, everybody who is doing anything with Bitcoin has a certain risk because you never know how the government will decide it. Or
the risk is very best.
Gentlemen, ask a question.
Yeah, there was another question. Yeah, let's move forward. Yeah.
You mentioned these legal problems, and it seems, if I understand you right, that this only has to do with American regulations.
No,
so
unfortunately not.
Mainly has to do, you mentioned the American several times in that context. So
I mean, the Americans are the most aggressive, probably. I mean, there have been other countries like India who was close to the point that they make it completely illegal, any use of Bitcoin. Or there was one law discussed in Russia where they wanted to make it also completely illegal, so something like 5 years jail when you do anything with Bitcoin.
I'm referring to the issue where any kind of offering to invest into this is considered a security and then it is illegal.
Yeah.
So why don't you just lock out American investors then?
So yeah, we could. I mean, in Bisq it's difficult because it's not a web page, so we cannot really lock them out because we don't know where they are.
IP addresses you can just
No, there are no IP addresses. There are no IP addresses in Bisq. It's all domain addresses, and you have no idea where the people are and don't know anything about them. And of course, we can make a pop-up with a checkbox, but it doesn't matter. Also, it's also with the companies who make this check. As soon as you have an American investor, one single, they apply the laws to you. And even if they make a trigger now on holiday in Europe and become an investor, you're already responsible for it. It's a stupid law. I mean, I agree that security law makes a sense as a consumer protection because so much scam is happening. I'm not a fan of it, but I understand the reasons behind it. But to apply it so broadly and strictly is an overreach of their power, and in my opinion, and yeah.
And why do you bother? I mean, what can they do if they tell you in America it's illegal here?
Yeah, the Americans have a very wide reach. They have extradition rules with nearly every country. They have a lot of power.
Look at Assange and Kimball and all those people who were never in the US and could get extradited now. So there were Kimball Schmitz or Assange, they could get extradited even without being there.
How many transactions are you processing today?
We are still in the low area. I mean, compared to the centralized exchanges, nothing.
Sure.
We have more or less.
10 or 100.
Yeah. In the best months, it was something like €500,000 per month. Already not so little, but yeah, it changed all the time. Mainly also from external factors, like when the price of Bitcoin goes up like crazy, people get very hungry. And when there's more chaos, like with the block size attacks and yeah, the last months when people are very unsure, people who are not trading so much because they were unsure about the situation and so on. And yeah, we were very bad with marketing and promotion. So we just have not the resources, and I'm not the PR guy, I'm a developer. And yeah, and at the end also we don't want to become too big. We want to really make the project really solid before we are boosting up, or we try to boost up.
But there's enough liquidity so that...
I mean, when you want to take an offer or create an offer with a good price, when you want to make an offer with 10% distance to market price, nobody will take it.
Yeah,
but when you with 1% or so, it's usually in euros, so easy to get an offer done. Not so fast like on a normal exchange where you make the click and you get it, but then it takes the time to get out your Bitcoin and your to pay in euro, so they often take 2 or 3 days.
Did you integrate Bitcoin Cash already?
No, that's a big discussion. I hate it, and I'm completely against this for too complicated reason to discuss it here, but for a very serious reason, I think. And I got a lot of critics from our own community, because many people, there are many big bloggers also in our community. I'm not a big blogger at all. I think it's a political attack on Bitcoin, but many people see it different, of course, like everything. And I got quite frustrated to see that so many people in our own community didn't consider at least the privacy issues, what I tried to argue against Bitcoin Cash, and just want to make the gamble or not gamble. I mean, some people are convinced that that's fantastic and Bitcoin Core is the enemy and the bad thing, but yeah, whatever. First I didn't support it because while it's basically in my, it's a little bit complicated, but I made a kind of like a benevolent dictatorship decision. I'm not supporting it because I think it's bad. And then I learned with the discussions and so on that at the end the project has to be more neutral, that we leave it open to the users what they want to support. And we have some idea how to do this in future. Probably with the DAO, then people can vote on it or whatever, or people have to pay to add a currency, and will be then basically in the hand of the users in future to make such decisions, and then probably less complicated discussions. But it's a difficult decision, because I mean, one clear rule is we are not supporting clear scam coins like this one coin. That's a completely clear scam coin, and they are now in court, so they are. So when something is absolutely clear to everybody, we are not supporting it because we don't want to help criminals, basically. And where is the line? Where is the border? Many people, many Monero people say that all the other coins, altcoins are scam coins like Dash or whatever. But you cannot be so strict because you become too narrow and it doesn't make sense. You have to be tolerant as far as possible. But it's always a personal choice where you make your decision, what you accept still and where you set the border. I think you cannot live without any border, because then you get,
But all your users do have Bitcoin Cash, and maybe many of them just want to get rid of it.
That's one argument, but we can discuss afterwards. It's a little bit more complex. My main reason is because it creates a huge damage on privacy for not only when you are trading, you lose. When you're not very, very good, you are good enough to not lose your privacy, but all the others not, and me included also not. It's very difficult to protect your privacy, and most people will lose your privacy, and not only their own privacy, but they are reducing the anonymity set of the others who are caring about their privacy, because all the old unspent transaction output get converged together, and the puzzle of unknown transaction output become much smaller, and the anonymity set will be much smaller. But it's too complicated for a general audience. I just know that he understands what I'm talking about. I don't assume that too many others could follow, but we can continue later. And that's exactly, again, this externalizing costs. People are doing their trades with Bitcoin Cash and speculating, and they are creating costs to people like me who is not trading, and they are creating damage to Bitcoin as a coin, so the price is going down because of them, and so they are reducing my wealth. Why? I mean, I'm not interested what you are trading. You should not, your interaction should not have an effect on my wealth, but it has, and you are additionally destroying the fungibility and privacy, or damaging it, of Bitcoin, and my privacy protection is lower like it was before. And I think that's a very bad situation, but it's complicated. Any other question, or maybe we go over to the beer and barbecue? Is there still anything in there? Is there any question more? Yeah.
Did you do an audit on this, like a security penetration test?
I would love to, but I asked many people for a security audit, but nobody did it. So it's very hard.
Bounty or something, like an bounty program? Sorry, you consider a bounty bug bounty or something?
Yeah. Also, we put up a lot of bounties, and people are not taking it. It's easier said like done. Or I mean, professional audits are super expensive when you do it right. Otherwise, it's just you get something on the paper. The DAO was audited and then it was taxed, so it's not worth the paper when you don't do it really serious. And I don't have 200,000 euro for spending for such an audit, or I don't know what it costs, but it's not cheap. Security experts are super expensive.
Is it open source?
Yeah, everything is open source. If you're a developer, you're very welcome. I would love it.
What language?
Java.
Java.
Java 8. So
nice.
Many, sorry?
I don't like Java so much.
Yeah, I know many people in the Bitcoin space don't like Java. Mostly, I think, because of wrong. Yeah, they had it in the university when Java 8 or Java 5, and it was boring and blah blah blah. But it has changed a lot. Java 8 is very modern. It has functional stuff and so on, and it's very mature language. Yeah, a lot of tools. I'm very happy that I didn't do it in JavaScript or Solidity or whatever, and fight with problems which are completely non-brainer in Java, like type problems or whatever. Typos that, like there have been in Ethereum a lot of problems. People made a typo in a variable and that breaks something. Such stuff cannot happen in Java, luckily. So, Vale, let's make the finish here.
Still beer, huh?
Yeah, there's some here.
Okay, one go. You can do it.
It's also one beer.
Darauf kann ich wirklich greifen. Das ist schon einfach.
You learn something.
Genau, aber hier bei
Yeah, I wonder how. Yeah, I kind of interested in using it.
I'm fine, thanks. Did you get the mining by now?
I replied today, yes.
Sorry?
Okay. When you want to learn,
so, you manage